For millennia, it rested in absolute darkness, a sealed chamber, untouched since the time of the pharaohs, where the very air was a relic. And inside, something was waiting. When beams of light finally cut through the veils of ancient dust, they swept across fading lotus patterns, across walls that had not seen the sun in 5,000 years. There, within a small niche, lay the prize. Not gold, not a funerary mask, but a palm-sized slab of polished dark stone, wrapped in the brittle shroud of long decayed. It was catalogued as expected, dynastic, ritualistic, an artifact belonging to the world that built this tomb. But a closer look revealed an inconsistency, a detail that would unravel the narrative. Along its edges, a fine inlay of copper had been set into precise grooves, secured with a hardened, amber-colored resin. And resin holds a secret. It is organic. It carries a memory of time that stone cannot. With painstaking care, microscopic crumbs were harvested from a hidden corner. They were sent not to one laboratory, but to two, a standard protocol for a result that might challenge everything. When the reports returned, they were met with a stunned silence. The numbers did not align. They refused to fit within the established timeline. The resin did not match the tomb. Its age was calculated at nearly 9,000 years. Two independent laboratories, using two different samples, arrived at the same unsettling conclusion. The artifact was profoundly older than the civilization that had so carefully preserved it. The first line of defense is always skepticism. Contamination, reused material, an anomaly. But the object itself seemed to argue back. Under magnification, its carved lines were impossibly clean, the curves unnervingly smooth. Within the grooves, forensic analysis revealed tiny, parallel striations, the signature of a controlled, abrasive force, something with an almost rotary precision that simple hand tools could not easily explain. Then there were the symbols. At first glance, they seemed familiar. A horizon, a boat, a star, the vocabulary of ancient Egypt. But the grammar was alien. The elements were combined in a syntax that belonged to no known period. At its heart was an image that defied easy interpretation. A ringed circle hanging above undulating lines, while below results entirely. A map? To understand how this could be, we must look beyond the pharaohs. Egypt did not spring fully formed from the desert sands. Before the First Dynasty, communities thrived along the Nile. The landscape itself was in flux, as North Africa cycled between lush savanna and arid desert. And across this ancient land, stone alignments stand as silent testament to people watching the heavens, long before the first pyramid was ever conceived. An older object in a later tomb is not impossible. It speaks of inheritance, of a sacred object passed down through generations. But an inheritance across 4,000 years is the detail that transforms history into mystery. If the dating is correct, this artifact is not a product of early Egypt. It is a messenger from deep time, a relic from a world that existed near the twilight of the last great ice age.
Welcome to my channel. If you're fascinated by hidden truths, lost civilizations, and unsolved mysteries, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like so you don't miss what's coming next. Because what you're about to see will change everything.
It asks a question that echoes from the dust of that silent chamber. Whose story were we meant to find? The world was unmaking itself. In the twilight of the last great ice age, the planet's climate was a pendulum, swinging between extremes. Glacial dams, holding back inland seas of unimaginable volume, would fail without warning. Temperatures could plummet in a matter of decades, triggering abrupt and brutal cold snaps. And all the while, the great ice sheets were melting. The seas rose, not inch by inch, but in relentless, devouring pulses, redrawing the maps of the world. A settlement thriving on a shoreline one generation could, in the next, be lost to the depths, its existence scoured from the earth, leaving almost nothing behind. It was a time of cataclysm and amnesia, a time when entire chapters of the human story could be erased. And it is from the edge of this chaotic epoch that this object seems to speak. At first glance, it is an enigma of stone and metal, but its construction defies our expectations of the primitive. It is built with an unnerving foresight, as if it were a piece of precision engineering. Beneath the unblinking eye of X-ray imaging, its secrets begin to unfold. The sliver of copper inlay is not merely pressed into a shallow groove, a simple act of decoration. It is keyed in, anchored deep within the stone with interlocking flanges. This is a technique designed to withstand stress, to endure movement, to survive. Its maker was not just an artist, they were a planner, a mind thinking in the complex language of materials, anticipating a long and arduous future for their creation. That is not craft. That is a statement of permanence. Seal reveals traces of a brilliant blue-green pigment. While infinitesimal, their presence is undeniable. Such pigments, in the ancient world, were often rare, derived from minerals sourced from distant mountains or traded across vast networks. This tiny clue hints that the object's story is one of motion. It may have been part of a system of trade, a diplomatic gift, or perhaps an heirloom, carried with reverence far from its point of origin, a tangible link to a forgotten homeland. Suddenly, the artifact ceases to be a geological or archaeological oddity. Ancient traditions from across the globe speak of such a period. The Egyptians called it Zep Tepi, the first time, a foundational age when the principles of order were established and profound knowledge was given to humanity. Officially, we are taught that myth is metaphor, a collection of stories to explain the natural world. But myth is also memory, refracted through the lens of trauma and time. A global catastrophe becomes a wrathful god or a world-devouring monster. A brilliant object crossing the sky becomes a celestial chariot or a divine weapon. A homeland lost beneath the waves becomes a sunken paradise, an underworld. This forces a question that tightens the mystery into a knot. What if this slab is a survivor? A genuine artifact from a culture that rose, and perhaps fell, before the first Egyptian dynasties, before the Sahara tightened its grip on the land, before history, as we know it, had ink and parchment to record its own existence. This does not require a belief in superhuman civilizations or magic. It only requires us to consider people, human beings, who were capable enough to shape stone with mathematical precision, to set metal with an engineer's foresight, and to encode information into a system of symbols. Symbols that later Egyptians might have recognized as possessing a deep and ancient power, even if their original meaning had been lost to the fog of ages. That single idea transforms our linear perception of history into a loop. It suggests a cycle of growth, collapse, and recovery, A catastrophic reset triggered not by divine intervention, but by the raw, indifferent power of nature. When the waters rise, coastal cities drown. When the climate flips, agricultural systems fail. In the ensuing darkness, knowledge becomes a lifeboat, and only fragments of it may reach the farther shore. And it is here, in this vacuum of knowledge, that the bolder what-ifs arrive, because the human mind abhors a blank space on the map of its own past.
Most people stop watching right here, but if you continue, you'll discover something almost no one knows.
At the object's ringed circle and see not a symbol, but a planet. They reach for tales of the Anunnaki, for evidence of ancient astronauts, for gods who are not gods at all, but literal visitors from the stars. Science, as yet, offers no confirmation for such spectacular theories, but the fact that so many minds instinctively make that leap is itself a piece of data. It tells us that the evidence contained within this single object feels larger, more significant than the official frame we have built around it. Yet here is the final, unsettling twist. You do not need to invoke aliens for this story to be profoundly disturbing. You only need to acknowledge the missing pages. Deep time is a ruthless editor. It can erase coastlines, bury cities under miles of sediment, and grind entire mountain ranges into sand. It can obliterate a civilization so completely that all that remains is one object. The crew and destination are lost to the abyss. In the sterile light of the laboratory, the researchers have given it a nickname, the Black Seal. It sits in silence, while the dating of its organic resin keeps insisting on an origin deeper than our histories allow. The tool marks on its surface continue to hint at a controlled, sophisticated technique. The symbols etched into its face refuse any comfortable translation. And there is one last detail, a feature almost cruel in its simplicity. Etched along the bottom edge is a series of tiny, deliberate notches. They are grouped and spaced, inheritors of a fractured history, are left to wonder what or who was being counted. Decoration, some say. A calendar, others suggest. A code, whisper a few. A message meant to be counted by someone who understood what truly mattered. When the light catches the surface just so, a sequence emerges, as if waiting for a forgotten key. For a code implies intent, and intent implies a purpose, a mind at work in an age we believed was silent. Herein lies the precipice. If a single smear of ancient resin can violently shove an Egyptian artifact back into a world before recorded history, what else sits in the quiet halls of our museums, mislabeled and misunderstood? The alternative is a notion too disruptive to entertain, that the Egypt of the pharaohs, in its own golden age, was already a curator of antiquity, preserving relics from a civilization even more ancient than its own. It forces a disquieting question. Have we been staring at the middle of the story this entire time, convinced it was the beginning? The mystery deepens, carved not in fragile resin, but into stone so unyielding it should not obey a human hand. Across the deserts of Egypt, the highlands of Peru, and the jungles of Southeast Asia, colossal megaliths sit in an eerie, patient silence. Their surfaces are not merely smooth. They are engineered with such exactitude that a human hair, let alone a blade, cannot slip between them. And some of these blocks, weighing hundreds of tons, appear to have been shaped with the effortless ease of soft clay. How could the accepted tools of the Bronze Age, fragile copper chisels and brute pounding stones, achieve such impossible feats? Consider the basalt blocks at the foundations of Egypt's great monuments.
If you think you've seen everything, wait. What comes next will turn everything upside down.
Basalt is a volcanic rock, harder than iron. Yet these stones bear the unmistakable signature of advanced machining. They are pierced with circular drill holes, their inner walls etched with fine, spiral grooves. A pattern strikingly similar to the feed marks left by modern, high-speed power drills. One stunned researcher remarked, "These marks look as if they were made yesterday, with tools we don't even fully understand today." Mainstream Egyptology maintains these were the products of primitive manual methods, a testament to unimaginable patience and time. But when engineers examine the evidence, they see something else entirely. They insist the marks suggest rotary tools, turning with a speed and consistency that defy explanation by hand power alone. This is not art, it is engineering. Could this be the tangible proof of a lost technology, a forgotten science wielded by our distant ancestors? Or does the truth point to something stranger still? When you stand before these cuts, when you trace the impossible grooves with your own hand, the word primitive suddenly feels inadequate, perhaps even dangerously naive.